Hello, everybody. A very warm good evening to all of you out there. We are hosting yet another discussion on Where the Kingfisher Sings, an anthology of stories based in the Northeast. One of our raconteurs, Dipannita Sharma, who is an actor and model, and everybody knows her, everybody loves her. She had given us a beautiful story prompt on which we had got many stories, and out of them, Antar, Atreya, and Stormy Hazarika has come on board to speak to us about their stories and about Northeast as a place that we all have loved. Welcome, all of you, and thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Same here. Before we start, Dipannita, I would love to invite you to share a few memories, after which I will take the discussion further into the basic elements of the anthology and the stories that has come up. Why
So,
don't you share some memories?
some memories from my childhood, basically, in
Yes,
Assam, right?
please. Yes.
Well, I think some of the story prompts that I had stemmed from the same, sort of space. I think a vivid memory, of course, is my picnic with my cousins in my ancestral home in Tezpur. And we had this huge well which we would cross, and we would, go to the backyard, the back garden, which now when I think about it, my God, it wasn't a garden. It was like, it was a jungle by itself, I think, because we had so much space at the back. So, yeah, so sorry, 1 second. I will do that, yeah. So there's so much ancestral, the space there was so much that at that time, we didn't need to go anywhere else for picnic. We could do that right at home. It was grandmom's home, and this was mandatory whenever we went there for our holidays, which was once a year during our summer holidays. Yeah, and the fact that it was so thick that we couldn't see the sky sometimes, and the sun would come and go when we are walking through the. We call it bari, bari as in the
Ah,
our uh, back garden or wherever we grow vegetables and fruits and all of that. So yeah, that's like a huge vivid memory, and I don't know why I keep in my head the well keeps coming back. There was such a I think as children we were not allowed to go near the well, so for safety purpose, and that stays, somehow as a child it stays with you that, oh, that was forbidden area. Everyone, all the chachis and my my kuris and my and my mom and my Burma, they could go, but I can't go. So yeah, so it was like something that I'd see from far, and somehow it became part of a very important part of my memory. Yeah.
so, can I ask something? Dipanita, you told that your ancestral home is in Tejpur, right?
I think she has lost her connection.
Okay.
Yeah, Antar, till the time she comes back, why don't you introduce your story, and after that, Stormy can introduce hers.
Sure. So, as the title of my story goes by An Old Man's Autonomy. So it's basically stemmed out of the idea that I have always heard and seen, even when I was a kid and I did not understand things like this. That whenever there's some kids going out somewhere out of Assam, maybe Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore kind of places for studies, and your parents and everyone, the relatives and all, they expect them to come back and have their lives here. They want them to get settled down the line in their own place here. And if that does not happen, then there is a kind of a clash of opinions and a clash of ideology, we can say, those kind of things. And it is a very big kind of a matter here in Assam, and I'm pretty much sure that even in other places of India where there is some touch of rural, what to call the rural hood. So that thing happens here, and here at times I also noticed that this thing was taken negatively. Uh, Parents or the kind of elders, they do not accept it wholeheartedly that children, if they go out to study somewhere, they might not come back, or they might find more opportunities somewhere else, and therefore that their life are going to change a bit. But that is why in my story I tried to present it in a different way, kind of a positive way, because I believe not always that we should be using the cliche characteristics of different characters and stories. We should try to, instead of showing what is happening, it is more better to show what ought to happen. So that is why the central character, if I can say, the old man in my story, he is a very liberal kind of a person. Although he does not want to leave his village and go with his son to the United States, but still he does not force his son or does not judge him based on that fact that he do not want to settle back in back in Assam. And with that also, I specifically stressed on the female character, that is the daughter-in-law of the protagonist or the old man.
Hmm.
And that is really always necessary for me. Even if I talk about my first book, the female characters, I just don't want them to be, standby or just onlookers. They should have a role, a very, persistent and, a very strong role in the story. Maybe that this is because, since childhood, I've seen my mother taking, decisions, my mother making, uh, the big decisions in our house and in our lives. It's not because that, my father cannot make a decision, but because it was a, kind of understanding that both my mother and father had. So that kind of a environment, or that kind of a situation inside a household, that is what I really aspire everyone to have, and that is why the story and the characters were set like that. And at the same time, since we are given the chance to write about Assam, so I wrote all that I could, about all the elements of Assam. And uh, I just always, as we all know, there is a persistent problem in Assam, and that is of flood. So I tried to club it together in the story. So I believe it's a amalgamation of all the kind of memories, all the kind of emotions, and the kind of different feelings and everything that we uh, people of Assam, especially when we when we think of our lives here, everything that we can think of, everything has been amalgamated into the story in some way. And that is what created that story. So if people read it, and thereafter, I guess they can find out more about it.
Absolutely. The story is available on Amazon worldwide. It is under the name Where the Kingfisher Sings, story set in the northeast of India. Before I go to Stormy, let me read out Dipannita's story prompt for our audience. So, Dipannita's story prompt was: the club was abuzz with summer activities. Children and parents crowded everywhere, checking the schedule for the cultural program. A little girl, barely 8, was ready to play a 70-year-old with betel stains all over her mouth. The retired professor looked away, trying not to laugh. Dipannita, thank you so much, sir, for such a brilliant, lovely, beautiful story prompt.
So that was me. I played that. I was that little girl
Okay.
who is,
But yet
yeah,
it's so relatable to,
people.
I guess it's relatable to everyone. I mean, we all can find it. There is a thing that happened. I don't know if it happens now or not. It's called Moina Parijat, right? Corel, sorry, Stormy and Dipanita, you would definitely remember that. So a part of that also comes into mind when your this prompt comes up.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
so
it is
this,
a very
yeah,
visual
very,
story prompt.
yeah. So this play
Absolutely.
was written by my Aita, my
Okay.
nani, and and she was an avid reader and a writer. Actually, she used to write
Oh,
plays.
wonderful.
My mom used to write, and we would of
Great.
course always, be the ones who would be cast in the play and everything. So yeah, I played this. This was probably my first role on stage, so called, that time, and I in fact wore a mekhla sador from my aita for this role. And it was, I think, modeled on her, actually. So so they put beetle stains because she was an avid tamul pan eater.
Uh,
Yeah, so so yeah, I even carried the botta that she used to have. So yeah, it's so special. And it's amazing that you're so little and something like this would so sit in your head, so
Absolutely.
well that you'd never forget it. And I think maybe my interest in what I do now could have stemmed from there actually, in some way.
Absolutely, I completely agree to that. And it's very visual. Even you had given us a very small story prompt, but it was so lively. It was just like you can see that moment.
Yeah.
Stormy, if I may request you to come forward and introduce your story to us before we proceed.
Thank you so much, Coral. So there were a number of prompts on the website. I mean, I stumbled upon TMYS by chance, and it wasn't as if I could resist the lure of Dipannita's prompt. I felt myself being drawn to other ones, the ones of rice bags and all that. But I don't know, in some strange way, I was being pushed towards this. And when I read it, the idea instantly came to my mind. It wasn't something that I could, it was as if to say the story had grabbed me and I was like, being led by the hand. And all of this began, I think, perhaps in somewhere around 1978 or 79 when I was in hostel with these other Assamese girls, and they would tell me about what would happen during the time that they got their periods and how they'd have to dry out everything in the sun and how they were unclean and all. So it was something that I had to write. There was no choice. And if the small girl is the central the central character, the protagonist in the story, I don't think I regret it at all. I think she made a beautiful protagonist of this story, and I think she's brought out this message wonderfully. We do have tradition. Some of them we can ignore. Some of them we must keep close to our hearts because that is our land. That is our land. That is what Assam is. Apart from, I mean, the nature and apart from the ghost stories that Coral mentioned, and apart from the ancestral homes that dot our countryside, I think there are so many things that we need to explore. And this entire thing of periods is one of them. I mean, look at the hoo-ha in the media nowadays about women not being unclean just because they bleed and all. So it is something very, I wouldn't say happening, but I definitely say it is something that is a hot topic of
Yeah.
discussion.
Current, yes.
Absolutely.
And this little girl, so wisely, I think I find women are very wise right from a young age. Sorry, Antar, but that's the
No,
truth.
no, 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 no. I
Man
totally agree with
smart,
that.
man smart, woman smarter, definitely. So right from
No, I
9, 10, whenever she's subjected to all these rituals in her home when she gets her periods, I mean that is the time when she shows an amazing wisdom, and I think that is what characterizes women of the Northeast as well as women of the rest of of India. And
Absolutely.
contrary to what I don't know, some Coral might have said that. Contrary to what is associated with periods for the rest of the country, I believe Punjabi women hide it. But in Assam, this is a huge, affair. The
absolutely.
Tuloni Bia is a huge affair, and thankfully, I didn't have to do that. I would have died of embarrassment, I think.
Same.
And my daughter also didn't was fortunate enough not to have to do it, but I have mixed feelings about this custom.
Yeah.
While I respect the tradition behind it, I don't think um, it is something you should advertise. I mean, it's putting out your girl into the market, the marriage market. Now that's not
No,
something
I
I
mean,
agree with. I mean, it's
historically, that
publicly
was the
announcing
reason, right?
to society that okay, my girl is of marriageable age, come and take her away.
Right, right.
Absolutely. Both your stories, and I would come to Dipannita on this one, that both the stories talk about some cause, and this cause we will explore in a while. But since we have come across to this particular point of women, uh, which Stormy's story beautifully takes up a women's cause, and Antar's story does that in a very subtle way. Antar's story is more about uh, belonging to that particular place where an old man stays and unbelonging to the rest of the world. He refuses to leave that space and go elsewhere. And there is the daughter-in-law who tries to put that in action, tries to respect the uh, thoughts of the father-in-law, and she has her own ways of doing that. A very, very strong character. Now, first dealing with this women's space, if I may ask you, Dipannita, how do you feel is the is the environment for women in your region? I mean, you could talk in terms of Assam or you could talk in terms of Northeast. But do you feel that there things are more progressive, or do you think that there is still a lot of things that needs to go out there?
I think I come from a region when it comes to women, it has always been very progressive. And I think for me, when I came to Delhi
Hmm.
to study, it was a bit of a culture shock in the manner that, um, at that time there was, I mean, just as it is even now, I think because we have such a long way to go, that there was
Hmm.
a clear demarcation in terms of, gender. And I didn't grow up with that. I
Hmm.
did not grow up with that. There are certain things which of course, which are part of your culture, and like she spoke about the Tuloni Bia and everything, and that these were always part of, and which, yes, even I have had major issues with. I still question it. But apart from that, in general, I think Antar also spoke about this, in terms of
Yeah.
decision making, in terms of like how the house is run. It has been so equal. I always say, I grew up with a feminist father, you know, and when I say feminist father, it basically means he truly believed in equal rights, and
Hmm.
which is why wherever the topic of feminism comes up, and even in the media, when people sort of make content where all the men in that show are terrible, and that is the way to show a woman is better, I have huge issues with that, because I
Hmm.
think as women, we can be better or worse, despite the other gender. So we don't need to constantly show the other gender or other genders as bad to make us feel better. Then there is no point of the
Yeah.
whole feminism. So I think so. I grew up in that scenario. So for me, it was always. That whole male female thing, yes, the basic differences are always there, but what I felt when I came to Delhi was completely alien,
Yeah.
before I came here. The objectification that I
Oh,
felt when I came to Delhi was just never there. You didn't grow up like that. You know what I mean, like, it's not about yes, when you're growing up, you have your crushes, you're getting attracted to each other, but it is all like real, organic. Nobody
A
is,
spontaneous thing.
yes, and it's spontaneous, and no one's looking down upon you, or no one's objectifying you. All these things was very, was it was a first for me when I came to Delhi in a certain manner. So I understand the whole, the whole uh, topic of discussion that we do currently in a larger space when it comes to the rest of India. But I think we all know, even outside of the Northeast, everyone knows that we grow up a little differently there. The thought process is different. And I think there is an inherent respect in genders. Yes, we have a long way to go, and I think, like the rest of the country, I think we have a long way to go. And the fact that somewhere the Northeast has always been spoken of a little differently. I think there is a lot of this to it, lot of and in certain ways, probably we say, oh, why do we speak of Northeast differently? It is part of the same country, which is also true. But then there are certain things in our culture which we have grown up with, and which are completely different from the rest of the country, which is why probably it does set it apart. So yeah, there is good and bad, and there is all these wonderful advantages, and I'm thankful for that upbringing and the and my childhood. You know, it makes me the
Wonderful.
person I am.
Absolutely. Antar and Stormy, uh, I have always been told that Bengali women are very dominating and they're very strong and they try to, try to take the upper hand. And I have also grown up knowing that women in the Northeast, there's matriarchy over patriarchy. I don't know whether this is true. Why don't you, both of you, tell us and
I'd like to
say
go
that
first
how?
on that.
Sure. I mean,
I'd
why
like
don't
to
you?
go first on that. I
I
think
would
the
like
man
to
is
hear from,
sensible enough.
I will just finish the question that
Yeah,
I would like to hear from both of you that how matriarchy there is, if at all practiced, and whether it has inspired your story in any way. Yes, so start.
I think there's an inherent respect for women there.
Mhm.
And that's, at the pivot of everything. A woman is respected as an individual, even though we do have things like all these Tuloni Biya and all that. So it's such
Mhm.
an interesting mix. And it is definitely not matriarchy over a patriarchal society. It's nothing like that. It's perhaps
Mhm.
because the man realizes that the woman is smarter, so he better leave everything to her, right?
Mhm.
And there is nothing as such about one dominating the other. I think it's a beautiful understanding that the man is essentially the breadwinner, but the woman can stand side by side with him. And she can go shoulder to shoulder. And there
Mhm.
have been incredible Assamese women in the history of our land. There are
Mhm.
incredible Assamese women living right next to my house in Jorhat or in Dibrugarh, wherever it is. So I wouldn't go as far as to say that Bengali women or Assamese women are dominating. No, that's just a beautiful expression of the way they are. Look, I can take charge, leave all the tough stuff to me, and that's that.
You have said
And I think
wonderfully that there is.
that's a beautiful expression of the way women essentially are.
Hmm.
A woman
Yep.
of Punjab or a woman of Delhi is not any different from what an Assamese woman essentially is. So I don't think it's matriarchy over a patriarchal mindset or something.
You have said beautifully. Antor, I would love to hear from you because you are a man and your perception is very important.
See, I do agree that I cannot say that there is matriarchy in Assam or Northeast as such. But I would say, here the husbands or essentially the males, they understand women a bit better than in comparison to what happens in the rest of the mainland India. And that is I'm speaking with my experience of having lived 7.5 years in Delhi. I've seen the way my friends and all everyone talks about women, right from objectification to anything, but here when I see in my own house, my father and mother, they both are working, they both are working individuals. So I've seen days when my mother needs to go out for her works at 7 a.m. in the morning, and my dad would just prepare out her clothes for her, so that once she comes out of her bath, she can wear it out and go, those kind of things. And maybe when she is having a bad day, he would give her a foot massage, or massage her head or something like that. And I've seen, I've grown up seeing all these things. And even now, I have been in a relationship since a very young age, and it has been 10 years since I've been in a relationship. And I personally can say this, in some things I totally agree with this, that my girlfriend understands and knows better in respect to some things. And I really respect those kind of decisions, even in my professional life. If I need to make a decision, if I'm in a dilemma and she does not even know about the entire circumstance surrounding it, yet I would go for an advice to her, because I find her practical, first of all. And secondly, I find her to be more, as you say, to be more prudent, to be more wiser. And they can, I believe that women can see different aspects of the same thing, and they can, and therefore maybe they are better at arriving at a conclusion. And here's something I believe, that this comes to women naturally, because as a woman you always need to be aware of your surroundings more than a man. Because if we talk it, it's sad, but it's true that women have to be more aware, because they are, there are more chances that they can become victims to things that they should not, you know, be off. But that is why maybe they're always more aware. Their senses work more better than us, and they can think beyond the things that typical males, or generally males can think of. So yes, they understand better, and that fact has been recognized by men here. So I won't say that there's matriarchy, but yes, there is a respect for women, and we believe that there's certain that they're not demarcated by certain kind of roles, or we do not demarcate women that they are only good for this kind of stuffs and they're not good for that kind of stuff. So that kind of a demarcation of bifurcation is not there here in Assam. At least I have not seen that. So I take a pleasure, and I'm really proud to have grown up in such a place or in such an environment. So that is what also inspired my story. The female character, the only female character that was there, you know uh, in a very subtle way, she took the final decision. She tried to bridge the gap between the son and the father-in-law. So those
Father.
kind of things are practical things that I have seen my own mother doing it. I have seen ladies around me doing that. So that is it. I feel about that in this way.
Okay, coming to Antar's story, which, I mean, of course, there are many explanations to this story, but what really touched my heart was the sense of belonging that an elderly person, though he is alone, left alone, and he is in frail health, refuses to leave the particular space and go with his son outside the country. There is an acute belonging, there is an acute familiarity, and there is acute love for the people around over luxury. Dipannita, how have you seen or how do you experience that belonging? I understand that you have come away, but I know that that place is very much in your heart. Which
Yes.
aspects, Antar's story touches upon various aspects of the region beautifully, along with telling the story, other than the characters, the nature, the rituals play a very strong part. Which are those aspects of belonging which you have hold in your heart, in spite of the fact that you are away from the place?
So, so yeah, I will begin with the fact that yeah, I'm away from home, but Assam always remains home for me. And yeah, and since the whole conversation has stemmed from what Stormy and Antar just addressed, it is strange that I faced objectification in Delhi for the first time and coming from such a different sort of background. But I found my life partner in Delhi. He's from Delhi and partly from Asansol in Bengal, and I feel and every day whenever we talk about it, so it's like I found, in terms of thought process, I found my father in a certain way. I mean, he's a feminist man from Delhi, so I guess there are exceptions. It could be the fact that he's been to boarding school or whatever, or he has a wider view or whatever it is. But I think, yeah, that the fact that I brought Assam with me when I left probably also propelled me to find the kind of people that I am comfortable with throughout my life. Very honestly, even through my journey as a professional. And people say so many things, even today, like they ask me questions: how did you survive it? How was, what kind of people did you meet? Was we have heard these kind of things. I will tell you very honestly, I have either, because of the way I came from Assam and the way I am, I have filtered out people who were not, who did not sit right in my life, and it happened so naturally that I didn't even get to know, because I think it has to do with the fact that you have grown up a certain way, that you attract only certain kind of people. So throughout my professional journey as well, I have, I will say that I've been fortunate, but also I think it has to do with what I have attracted. And that I thank Assam for. I always thank my region for being the way I am, the way my mood is. I remember, that is, I think, the sense of belonging that I feel even today. I remember there was an agent, who gets you work, who had the serious meeting with me. And then when he was sitting with me, he asked me something like, okay, so you haven't worked for 3 months or something like that. I said, yeah, I'm waiting it out because I haven't got something, something that is interesting me, that has of any interest to me. So he just kept looking at me. He's saying, it has to, you're so chilled out only because you're born and brought up in the Northeast. No, it has to be because of that. Because anyone in your place would have
Would
been
freak out.
so, yeah, would have been going through turmoil right now that I haven't worked for 3 months. So these, but honestly, I'm telling you, it has given me, the place I've grown up has given me a sense of calm. It has always given me a sense of calm. It has given me, a lot of seeing the things the way it is. It has given me this inherent sensibility, where I'm this walked up state doesn't happen to me. Yes,
Hmm.
we all go through our little moments, but I'm seeing the fact that I haven't worked for 3 months at some point is not that big a deal, because for me, I have, this is my path. This is the path I've created. I am in this artistic world where you're not going to have a job all the time. It is not a 9 to 5 job. And where does this sensibility come to me? It comes to me because of the upbringing I've had, thankfully, and the place I've grown up in. We might, people might talk about the Northeast and Assam as, oh, lahe lahe, everything happens, slowly and whatever. That's proven to be such a boon for me, especially in this industry. Seriously, it has
Oh,
been a boon.
yes.
I'm very happy being lahe lahe. I love, I love my sleep. I want to, when I have had a hectic schedule after that, I want a break. I have never been this person who needs to get up every day and do something. I mean, in fact, that is my inspiration. That you preserve yourself when when you give yourself enough rest, when you have. So, yeah, lahe lahe has been very good for me, and that is definitely a very serious belonging for me. Yes.
Yeah, so that's a word I have learned to lie, lie. I'm
হয়ে যাব,
certain you
হয়ে যাব,
must.
সব বস্তু হয়ে যাব
Hoi jabo,
in
everything.
time.
My father
চিন্তা
always used
নকৰিবা, that's their byword.
and
চিন্তাই
that is,
নকৰিবা.
you're so right, because that's beautiful. Everyone says, my father used to say, hobo nohoy, lahe lahe sab hoi jabo. And which means it will happen slowly, everything will happen. And I cannot tell you, this simple thing has been so true. It happens, everything happens. It could take its time, but it'll happen. Tonight, if you're stressing right now, it's not helping you. It's, how is it helping you? Let it
This is
happen.
definitely something that I have learned the hard way. It's so sad that I get to hear it when I have learned it the hard way. I should have heard it much before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stormy, what is your sense of belonging? And after that, I'll come to Antar, who has written that story.
I remember going back to Assam for the first time, and I looked around me when I got off, got down from the cab, and I looked around me and I actually touched the soil and kissed it. All my, I don't know, the very essence of who Stormy is begins and ends with Assam. No place can ever be. My daughter's currently settled in New Zealand. She
Hmm.
works there, and she's intent on taking me there. But I will never leave India, because for me, India means Assam. I mean, my dad was a tea planter. So we've grown up running through the tea bushes, climbing up trees. And where can you ever find that sort of a childhood? Eating ulgobi and, jolokia
Oh, yeah.
guri and salt and all in the middle of the tea bushes. And we were planters' children. So we had to maintain a certain sort of a, tat no bohiba, yat no koriba, etu no koriba, don't do this and don't do that, no? Because you belong to that elite class of Bagan people. So, I mean, I can't not belong to Assam. Everything I am, everything I do, everything I think, breathe, eat is Assam. A very
So
small
you
thing,
please go ahead.
excuse me if I may continue. Yeah, a very small thing. I work in a boarding school, so we are provided meals like lunch, breakfast, dinner, everything. I don't go up to get dinner because I prefer to cook my Assamese food at home,
Mhm.
which is, not the typical North Indian food. Very simple, hardly any masala and all that stuff like that. So I can't not be Assamese. I mean, I am Assam.
You have almost said Antar's story in a different way. Uh,
Absolutely.
what she
Which was
said
what was
has
going through my mind.
yeah, stark resemblance with your story, Antar, your sense of belonging.
See, whenever I land in Assam coming from Delhi, the first thing that really fills my heart with joy is looking at the signboards and seeing everything written in
Seeing them in
Assamese language.
Assamese,
And that really is
priceless.
such a beautiful and joyful feeling that that cannot be expressed in words, obviously. And thereafter, the food that Stormy said, this food kind of a thing is, it's this might sound really kind of possessive kind of a thing or something like that, but truly I can say this, that wherever I go in the world, there'll be never nothing like Assamese food. The kind of simplicity that we have, in, like Stormy said, we do not use much of masala and all. It's a very subtle kind of a dish, and at the same time, the language and the
I think his connection is
I think,
lost.
yeah. So, uh,
Assamese food is all about flavors. This is what I was going to say. It's
Oh my God, the
flavorful.
limes.
Yeah, and it is not spicy. You're not going to, tears are not going to come out. This is one thing I keep saying, in North India. Like here, I'm like, God, food doesn't have to be heavy and spicy to be good because, we have such wonderful flavors, masotenga and everything. And it is just flavorful and it is light on the stomach and in your mouth and it's wonderful. That's exactly what I was going to add when Antar and Stormy were, talking
yeah.
about.
So, Antar, we lost your connection for a while. So, if you want to continue.
Yeah, sorry, I
haha.
started talking
So
immediately.
that was what I was saying. No, no, that's absolutely all right. The language, and then this the food thing, and thereafter
Language.
the bihu songs, and in fact, it's due. Bihu is coming. It's on 14th. It's just hardly a week away. So almost before, it was like this, that a month before Bihu, we'd hear the Bihu songs all everywhere, and there'd be what you call husori. There are folk. It's a sort of folk dancers that would come to your place, and they would dance for you, and we would pay them some sort of respect. And it's such a beautiful kind of a thing. Those kind of things you'd never gonna find in other places. I mean, I do not say that having lived in Delhi, there are certain perks of staying there. There's certain other kind of ways in which you can be entertained, or other merits. But obviously, here the kind of things that is really unique, and it's not just unique because we three are from this place, so we are insisting on being this, calling this place unique. It's not that. It's genuinely unique. A very another small example would be this, that I've often seen, once I've started living in Delhi, people during weekend gateways and all, they need to go to Uttarakhand or Himachal Pradesh, which is some 100 kilometers away from Delhi. But here, just 20 minutes bike ride or a
Yeah,
20
I
minutes drive,
know.
we always find rivers, mountains, and everything, and trekking and all can be done. So it's a complete, whatever you need in life, you can get everything in it. That is why at sometimes I do feel that chalo, at the end, let me settle here in Assam. But as life happens, I don't think that that's gonna happen. But nevertheless, that is something that would be always close to my heart. And I right from now, in fact, even as a kid, I always wanted this. When I knew that I would not be staying or settling in Assam, I was certain that my even my kids or my next generation, they have to maintain a touch with Assam. I'd be making frequent visits, because this thing cannot be, I cannot lose out on this, and this has to be passed on to posterity as well. So that is the kind of belonging that I have here. And
Right.
another thing, if I may add, and since Dipannita is here, so I really want to mention about it. people come, when people coming out of Assam and doing something of really, important in the national field. That's pretty rare in Assam. So whenever we see someone like that, it makes us, all of us, we the as a single unit, the entire Assam feels proud. I mean, now I came to know about Dipannita first. After actually I watched Ladies versus Ricky Bell, and thereafter I came, I stumbled upon your account when you had an interview with Anirban Bhattacharya.
Yeah.
So,
It was a
so
real
then
fun one.
Yeah. Maybe
exactly,
he's a
and
very dear
thereafter I
friend.
start.
Yeah.
Okay, and I watched the entire stream. I remember he asked you, I think, 5 or 6 quiz kind of things also and stuff like that, and it was really fun. And then I started following you there, and that really gives you a sense of belonging, or sense of I could connect with her, because just because she was from this place and she has gone that far, जो कहते हैं ना एक अपनापन सा आपुन आपुन जोनটো লাগে সেইটো থাকে. So that is the, and even choosing this prompt, it was because of this very reason that I was certainly feeling that if I could make it up, so maybe I'm going to have an interaction with Dipanita, and that would be great. That was the reason why I choose that prompt among all. So this is kind of thing that I've always felt. Here people, if there is someone making some sort of success in the national field, in the national scenario, from going out from Assam,
Present,
that
yeah.
everyone comes together, and it's a success for the entire community, for the entire state. And that's so beautiful. You have so many people to share your joy, your success, and your happiness with. And these kind of things are, again, I would say, really unique and individual to Assam and maybe Northeast.
And
I think
what happens when you discover a fellow Assamese outside? I mean, you break into
Ha,
maybe a bihu or something like that. I
absolutely.
met this I met this gentleman when I was buying fish with another colleague in Dehradun. So
Okay.
I immediately made out no that he was Assamese,
Ha,
because like you begin to first identify the accent, and then you begin to, of course, there's the food habits. Why would he be in a fish shop if he was vegetarian or something? And we got chatting, total strangers, but we chatted as if we had known each other for years. So I think that feeling that Antar said, of coming together as one community, that is amazing. That's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it's true. Thank you. And Anta, thank you for the kind words. Thank you so much. And I was just going to say that, I get so much support from back home. I cannot tell you the encouraging words, from just the fact that, I'm someone from Assam, and that I, I think they feel very happy. Most people feel very happy that I have managed to make my own space in the national, uh, in the national, sort of on the national level. And they always say this, what Antar said, that someone from here has, and I'm very grateful, because I think that takes me ahead. That kind of support takes
absolutely.
me ahead, takes me, gives
Absolutely.
me so much strength and courage. um, and yes, about meeting fellow Assamese, my God, and a lot of times people still get very um, surprised that I'm from Assam a lot of times. Like a lot of people think, oh, we didn't know you're from Assam. Now, of course, most people know, because I'm always saying it very loudly.
Saying it.
Because I want people to know that I'm from Assam, and I'm very proud of being from Assam. So a lot of people for the longest time would always be surprised. Oh, really? You're from Assam? Oh, you don't have this accent and you don't have that accent. And I always say that no, everyone
Absolutely.
doesn't. Yeah. So so no, I'm very much from Assam, and I've just lived outside for so long. And my profession is such that I need to get my accents right, and I like to get my
Yeah.
accents right. Doesn't mean I'm not from Assam. So yeah, meeting Assamese people is like a porbo in
Homecoming.
itself. It's like a festival. It's porbo, I always say.
Ah,
Because to start talking in Ohomia immediately.
Please say a
Uh,
few words in Okhomia. so that I can at least
এতিয়া
hear the language.
কিয় মোক অসমীয়া কোৱা শুনা নাই মই অসমীয়াতে কথা পাতো এনি টাইম মানুহৰ অলপ এইটো কি বুলি কয় অলপ এটা শক হয় বহুতে তুমি অসমীয়া কোৱা নে মই মা আৰু ভণ্টিৰ লগতো অসমীয়াতে কওঁ অসমীয়া নকলে কেনেকে হ'ব
She has sprung out like a river the moment you offered her to speak in Assamese.
And I guess even choral you can get bits of it, right? As you are Bengali, being a
Oh
Bengali,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
quite
very
similar.
much, very much. I understand. Of course, it's very easy to
Yeah.
understand. And
By the way,
accent, when I hear, I just try to have that in mind.
Yeah,
It's
I
so
speak
much
Gong
fun.
as well, by the way. I always say,
Okay.
that then people get really shocked and surprised that, Acha, you read Ohomia also. I said, excuse me.
We studied it in school.
I'm born and
No,
brought up
here, this is
I'm
a
an
really
only
important
child.
question. People do ask you that, can you read Assamese or not?
Oh
Especially
yeah.
after, my book came out, people here do ask me that, can you write in Assamese as well or not? Because that is something, you can call it regionalism or, the love for language,
Yeah.
or maybe because Assam movement happened in a very, historical way, and it has got its own implications and impacts here. So that's really
Right.
important, here
When
No,
that
you
yeah.
we really
actually,
need to.
Know your thing, and I feel also with me, I don't know about how why people ask Antar or Stormy about this. With me, most people feel like acha, she works on the national level and she speaks Hindi in a Hindi whatever Hindi medium content, if it is a feature film or like a web series or whatever. Then how will she speak in Ohomia? So I had given this explanation once. I had written like this full post on FB. I said, if I'm being hired to be a part of a Hindi feature film or web series, I have to speak in Hindi. And I have to get it
Absolutely.
right. I cannot be speaking like,
an
speaking like
Assamese
someone who
turned
doesn't
Hindi.
sound genuine,
Like
right?
my Hindi, like my Hindi.
But that's okay because you can get away with Hindi, and Hindi has that kind of Hindi because Hindi also is a national language and everyone speaks with different accents,
Yeah.
But I, as an actor, have to get it right. And similarly, if I'm
Absolutely.
speaking in the English language, I have to get it right. But Ohomia is my mother tongue. I've grown up with it. You can't forget that my mother and father are Assamese. We spoke Ohomia every day. Read, write, speak is the most natural thing for me. Ohomia, read, write, speak. That's the first language I learned. And and I'm thankful I learned that because even in Bengal, I actually speak Bengali because I'll tell you, there's an interesting story to this. When I began as a model, at that time, there are quite a few girls, there was nobody. And all the Bengali girls like Noina, Noinika Chatterjee and, Bipasha, who were top models at that time, they all thought I was Bengali. So they would all start speaking
Acha.
to me in Bengali. So then I told them I'm Ohomia. So then they said, oh, Ohomia, ha. তখন তো তুমি বুঝতে পারবো so they will all tell me that then you will understand I will speak in Bengali, you sit here, you will be able to understand secret and all so so because so I also got to learn another language and today I can speak, I can read Bengali so well because I can
Oh,
read and
Assamese.
speak Ohomia. And
yeah.
it's just the accent actually. So I think that also makes me versatile. So I feel, again, going back to Assam, I'm so thankful, that I'm from there. Really.
Totally. Before we wind up, quickly, if we could discuss for a brief while, which other stories from the Northeast that must be written about? This is something very interesting for me because, last time we did a session with Mamang Dai and Subitaba and Darshana Chakravarti, I think, or I'm getting the name wrong maybe. So what happened was Subi said that we should talk about the ghost stories and the mystery of the Northeast. And I was like, wow, that's quite a thing that actually hasn't been explored enough. I would like to know from all of you that what are the stories from Northeast that must be written and are not being written enough?
So
Would like to
I
I
say.
do
think
feel that
our history,
exactly, that was what I was also going to say.
Hmm.
our history,
You know,
definitely.
Yeah, his
history and
history, as in, would you like to
there's
elaborate a little bit?
I don't want to say anything much because I'm working on something.
Okay.
And yeah, all our great heroes and the women, the strong women of our ancient land, I think the Ahoms and things like that. That would be very interesting.
True.
I think that hasn't been touched as yet.
Right. Antar, would you like to add to that before I go to the Dipannita?
like along with history, a bit of mythology, and there is a place here in a place near Nagaon called Mayong, which was believed to be the epicenter of magic, black magic, white magic, all sorts of magic. So there are many stories and many mysteries about it. So that can be brought out, and along with that, I believe that the rest of India does not know much about the freedom fighters that emerged from Assam, like
Very
Moniram
true.
Devan or Konok Lata. So those kind of stories
Yes.
should come out. And obviously, if we talk about history, then there is the Ahum history, the Kasari history,
Such a lot.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
apart from that, another thing that people do not know is that people never think that even in Kurukshetra, Assam participated in Kurukshetra. There was King Bhagadatta who fought valiantly with Arjuna, and he was a terrific elephant warrior, and they had a fierce fight. So those kind of things are not known. The Narakasura tale, Narakasura, how Lord Krishna emancipated 16,000 women from his harem, and sort of married them just to give a status, a
Mm.
solid status to them in the society. Those kind of stories, the many hidden concealed things. So those, the many things to explore in those respects, I believe.
Absolutely. Just to add to yours, I have been fascinated by the character of Chitrangada, who was a Manipuri princess from the
uh,
northeast. And in case the audience don't wouldn't know, I would like to mention that Chitrangada was our first Prime Minister Nehru's ideal woman. Gandhiji's ideal woman was Sita. Nehru's ideal woman was Chitrangada. He wanted women to be a fighter. So, Dipannita, now I mean, we would like to hear from you the stories from the Northeast that must be covered.
So I will take what Stormy and Antar said forward. Actually, um, I've been thinking a lot about the history of cinema in our state, and very little has been spoken. And I will, well, a little trivia I think would be that Pony Sharma, who was one of the stalwarts at that time, who everyone called Bolinda. He's actually my granduncle.
Okay.
And
so
I know a lot of stories from my family as to what went into making, the first few films. And, he was also Natya Surya, he was well, yeah, stalwart of stage as well, and how he would go about creating something. There are some fun stories, like really funny, what he would do to gather funds for for a film or for a stage production. And he would perform at Ban stage, who's in Tezpur. So I have a lot of these, and I think these stories need to be told, you know and
Absolutely.
and we have, I think, so much talent back home, so much when it comes to the whole media, theater, films, and very little, like how Antor and Stormy said, such little is known about everything, I think, back home, that I would definitely like to explore this area. Yes, it would be, it would mean giving quite a bit of time. But I think I am ready to give that time. I want to bring these stories out, and I want people to know more about Assamese cinema, Assamese theater, literature, all of that. So there's so much to explore. So yeah, and I think food will be, although Assamese food now at least people know a little bit, but there is so much more again about food to know. And Coral, you said something very interesting, the horror folk folk tales from back home. In fact, me and my business partner were working on something actually on those lines, because again we have had such wonderful stories through our childhood, you know,
Absolutely.
growing up hearing all of this, and the horror people in general, on the national level also, the horror intrigue is a lot. So why not Assamese folk tales, Assamese horror folk tales, and other folk tales as well, you know, like Buri Ai Khadu,
Absolutely.
you know. Yeah.
I would so much look forward to that, Dipannita, because the
Yeah.
region is something which is very close to my heart, and I would really look forward to the horror tales coming from that.
No, and thank you, Coral. You know, you have been so enthusiastic about bringing this to the fore, and thank you, really. This has been so fulfilling having a discussion with all of you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
This,
same
the
here.
entire endeavor by Coral, this was so
Yes,
so necessary and so beautifully done. Really,
yes,
thank you, Coral. And
absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you
Dipanita,
so
if I
much.
may ask, Dipanita, if I may
Please go
ask
ahead.
you, where is your ancestral home exactly in Tejpur? Because as I'm from Tejpur, so it would be great to know.
Oh, you're from Tezpur also.
Ah,
Okay. See, one nice reunion is happening here. So
exactly.
I
my
studied for part in Tezpur. Dad was
Okay.
working in a tea garden next to Tezpur, so we
oh,
studied
how
there.
Acha.
I'm the
So
only odd
which
one
school
out,
did you?
nothing to do with this.
so my area is called Kolibari. So I'm
Acha,
from
Kolibari.
Kolibari.
Okay.
Huh. Very close to Banstage actually, where all
Ha
the
ha ha ha.
the stalwarts have performed and all. There are a
Ha.
lot of stories.
Absolutely.
I have performed in Banstage also in my summer
Okay, even you have.
holidays. Yeah, some
Okay.
people who dance
Great.
and some play and all. Go
Acha.
there for summer holidays and take part in everything. Yeah, it was great fun. Where are you from
I'm from
in
Murhati
this?
in Tejpur.
Oh,
It's
see,
on the way to
Coral.
the town. Yeah, pretty
Ah,
close
all the
by.
reunion you've made it. Yeah, you've made like a nice small little reunion. She has studied in school in Tezpur, my ancestral home. He is also from Tezpur. What a small world. My God. Three people
Absolutely.
on the same show from Northeast. Somehow, have connections to the same town and all. It's a beautiful town. My God. It's beautiful. It really is.
And also,
Totally.
it's known
So,
as the cultural capital of this state.
yes,
Yes.
As you say,
Cultural capital.
Fani Kharma and everyone,
Yes.
they were
Yeah.
from this place itself.
Yes.
true. So, thank you, audience, for joining us. And thank you, Dipannita, Antar, and Stormy, for taking out time. I really, really value this conversation. To the audience, please do read Where the Kingfisher Sings. Do reach out after you have read, do reach out to the authors. Your comments are the only takeaways that the authors can have. And once again, thank you to all three of you for making time
Thank you,
and joining
Coral.
us in
Thank you
this
for doing
conversation.
this.
Thank you
Thank
so much for having us.
Really, thank you. This was a pleasure. So nice meeting all of you. Thank you.
Thank
Absolutely.
you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.